Some think proof that reincarnation is plausible may come from the mouths of children. Journalist and author Tom Schroeder chronicled a research project in which Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia collected seemingly astonishing stories of reincarnation from children. Hundreds of youngsters spoke in detail about what might be their past lives.
Small children would be talking about their wives, their parents, their children, the houses they used to have. You know, they'd say, my house was bigger than this house, meaning the house that they were born into. Or my mother, you know, was more devout than you are, Mom. And they would be very specific in some cases, so specific that they actually identified real people who had lived not long before they were born.
Some people say they've seen the other side.
And it opened up like a rip in the fabric of that reality.
They are no longer themselves. They are no longer in space and time.
We believe that the end of life is not well researched, and more research should be committed to this endeavor.
Is death the end? It takes an hour and a half to cut Christine from the wreckage.
We were working near the heart to stop the bleeding. And suddenly, her heart stopped beating.
Because Christina's heart has stopped pumping, many would consider her dead. Yet something seems to be happening with her mind.
Das nächste, was ich wieder weiß, ist, ja, dass ich wohl unter der Decke...
Next thing I know, I was hovering underneath the ceiling of the room. I could see down on myself laying on the operating table. And I saw the surgeons and heard them talking to each other. The scenario was pretty hectic. I realized that this was about life or death.
A common element that occurs early in near-death experiences is what's called an out-of-body experience. At that time, the person seems to be able to see and hear things going on, but up from the vantage point above their body. Christine's awareness of these heavenly realms is classic. Near-death experiencers often describe realms that are beyond earthly in their beauty. They often use the term heavenly realms.
Coming up.
Guys, welcome to Deadwood. I mean, they say like 1 to 2 murders per day in these streets.
It was probably 2:30 in the morning, and I saw this guy in a duster and a cowboy hat. Just turned around and just walked out.
All right, Mr. Cowboy Man, you're trying to get someone's attention. Do something. Dude, well, something just pushed me, man. Something's like nudged me from behind.
Meet the Kling brothers, founders of the group Everyday Paranormal. Their mission: investigate the country's most haunted places.
So I hear you used to live in one of the rooms upstairs.
Yes.
What made you move out?
Well, I was laying in my bed, and I was startled in the middle of the night, and there was a woman standing at the foot of my bed. She was about 5'8", looked like, red hair, a silk dress, and she never said anything.
Didn't say a word, or
didn't say a word.
Was it looking at you or looking?
Looking at me, straight at me.
Did the experience scare you at all?
Well, yeah, we're all scared of what we don't know. At least I am.
All right, do we have any audio from the stairwell?
We do, and it was right about where you were when you got pushed. You remember when you were talking about having heard what you thought was a female voice?
Right, just kind of whimpering or something like that.
Yeah. Got it.
Anybody down the stairwell?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody down the stairwell?
Have there been any fires here? Yeah, back in the 1876 and like 1890 something, it burnt. The whole town burnt down, including this building.
Anybody down the stairwell?
This is some cool evidence. Let's give it to Ron. I want to show him what we got.
Have you ever wondered if heaven is for real? Well, after a brush with death, a young boy may have the answers millions of us are looking for.
He got sick, and it looked like the stomach flu. It was going around town. All the kids were getting it. Someone came to us and started talking to us that we got to have surgery on your kid.
It was tough. Seeing your boy be lifeless when he was very vibrant.
We were looking at each other. I remember my wife holding Colton in that hallway, just us. He's not even moving. We went to the surgery prep area, and I remember them hauling him away and him just yelling at me, "Daddy, don't let him take me. Daddy, don't let him take me." And I went back to the pre-op room where we had left some stuff, and I was finally alone, shut the door, and I just broke down and I was mad at God. I just frustrated, fed up. And I remember telling him, I said, "God, after all I've done for you, and now you're going to take my kid? This is how you treat your pastors?"
At the hospital, after 17 days in the hospital, Colton emerged, but he was different. He began speaking about things he couldn't possibly know about: his mother's miscarriage, his father's prayers, and a visit with his great-grandfather, Pop.
Hour and a half, maybe. Then I remember the nurse coming out. "Is Colton's daddy out here?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, Colton's in recovery, and he's screaming for you." And I'm sitting there with him. And I remember my son in that room then looking up at me and goes, "Dad, do you know I almost died?" And my first thought was, maybe he overheard the nurse say that, or maybe they thought he was under anesthesia, you know, and he wasn't. But it wasn't till 4 months after we got out of the hospital that we finally listened to our son.
And that's where I got to see heaven. No, Jesus and some angels came and flew me up to heaven. He was wearing white robes with a purple sash, and he just came down nicely and gracefully.
We talked about heaven, and he was telling me all these wonderful details. I just felt like I had to ask him, did he want to come back?
I knew that I was leaving heaven because Jesus came to me and said, "Colton, you need to go back." Even though I didn't want to go back, he said that he was answering my dad's prayer.
Is there life after death? An age-old question. At the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, scientists are investigating claims of reincarnation. For over 40 years, they have tried to explain the accounts of young children who speak of a past life. Stories like the one of this girl, who claims to have drowned and is now reborn. Or this 6-year-old boy, who thinks he used to be a New York policeman killed in the line of duty. Or this boy, who remembers having lived as his own grandfather. There are thousands of stories like this, and Dr. Jim Tucker has gathered many of them.
We're investigating cases of very young children who spontaneously begin talking about previous lives. They usually begin between the ages of 2 and 3 and continue until the age of 5 or 6. We've been studying these cases for the last 40 years. We've now collected over 2,700 cases like this. These cases have been found all over in Asia, in West Africa, they've been found in South America, in Europe, and the United States, pretty much wherever they've been looked for.
If you look at the world, there seems to be another force at work that has a will towards evil.
When you are inside the exorcism, you're attacking, and the demon is defending himself.
A battle between good and evil, fought man to man and soul to soul. If you are unlucky enough to be caught up in it, there are only a handful of men in the world who can help you. They are the exorcists, and these are their true stories.
Once evil is turned out into the world, it is exceedingly difficult to put back in the box.
Every year, the Roman Catholic Church receives thousands of requests for help with what the Church calls demonic infestations. In fact, the Church has set up the International Association of Exorcists to help educate priests of all things demonic. In 2004, they got a call about this house on the outskirts of Pittsburgh.
The house infestation is a lot more prominent than people know these days or talk about.
Because if you say that to somebody, I hear things or see things move, they're going to say, oh yeah, you got a few screws loose.
An Arkansas couple thinks their dream house is the deal of a lifetime. But there's a reason it's such a bargain.
Tell us who you are.
That was the worst thing we could have expected it to say.
And what they don't know will hurt them.
Then I knew there is such thing as ghosts and demons. We had to have help or we might not survive.